Good evening, friends. We're reading passages from Inner Work of Adat Hashem. We're on page 125. When we feel ourselves in the presence of God's glory and exaltedness, we are redeemed. Our inner work is to attain this. Kisha Adam zoche lahargish et kavod romamut Hashem. When a person merits to feel the glory and the exaltedness of Hashem, Bezeg ulato, this is his redemption, his ge'ulah. Kol ha'abodah shelanu hi la'siged zot. All of our work is to attain this. So a person is redeemed when he merits or she merits to feel the glory and exaltedness of Hashem. So when we experience the awesomeness of the divine, when we feel God vibrating in all that is around us, every object, every person, all of nature, we feel God vibrating in everything. That is our ge'ulah, that is our redemption. And we feel the source of that vibration and the awesomeness of the source of all creation, of all existence. We truly, truly feel that. That is redemption. That is Geulah. Right? Again, we talk about Galut and Geulah. We talk about exile, the exile paradigm, and the Geulah paradigm. And many times in our tradition, it's talked about in the collective way, that this paradigm we are all living in is Galut, which is true, and that in the future that will be the Geulah, which will be the Geulah Shlema, the final redemption with for everyone. But on the way there, we have our personal redemptions, our Geulah individualit. Where we are each redeemed on our own, creating and contributing to the collective consciousness of Geulah. Or you could talk of it as the messianic consciousness. All of our work is to grasp this, is to arrive at this place. All of our work in Emunah is to truly see and feel God vibrating in everything around us, to focus our attention, to make that our priority, the priority of our work, until it becomes our reality. We focus with our thoughts, contemplation of the divine, that everything is vibrating with God's vibration, radiating with God's light. And with our emunah, we act as if that were what we were feeling. We treat other human beings in that way. We treat life in that way. All life is sacred. The challenge is that we become used to it and we take it all for granted. But the reality is that every moment is full of awesomeness, because every moment is full of the great mystery. Where all of this came from, how we got here, where is here, where are we? We are in the great mystery, we are the great mystery. This is what we are here to manifest in our beings and embody in our lives. And the world around us is our testing ground, is our challenge ground. The world around us, unfortunately, wants to keep us in the dark. The culture that we live in, built off of generations of trauma, is trying to keep us in the dark, trying to keep us numb and asleep to the truth. It may sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's not. And you can think it is if you want, but it is actually indeed the truth. And it's really, really difficult to embrace and actualize within a culture that is enmeshed and admired in sleep. We need community, we need others who are committed to the path, committed to the revelation of the divine and the service of the divine. To the degree that we refine ourselves spiritually, the Torah opens itself to reveal God. I'm going to do the Hebrew again because I'm noticing there's a bit of deviation from the exact translation. B'shi'ur she'ha'adam mezachech et atzmo. To the amount, to the degree that a person refines himself. Az Torah potachat et atzma. Then the Torah will open itself. Mureh lo et HaKadosh Baruch Hu shenimsa b'toch HaTorah. And it will reveal to him HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God the Creator, the Holy One, blessed be He, shenimsa b'toch HaTorah, that is found within the Torah. So to the degree that a person refines himself or herself, then the Torah will open itself and it will reveal, it'll show, it'll illuminate God within the Torah. Well, I guess the English translation is, it's not exact, but it is to the point. To the degree that we refine ourselves spiritually, the Torah opens itself to reveal God. So the more that we refine ourselves, the more we do the work of emunah, to pray to God for emunah, to pray to God that we see clearly, that even though we're clouded in confusion, that we are able to focus on what truly matters, that we're able to focus on feeling the divine and serving the divine. The more that we're able to refine ourselves through this spiritual practice, then the Torah opens itself. And it illuminates that God is found within the Torah. So we start to see the Torah differently. the more we refine ourselves, the more we're able to really see God within the Torah. We're able to understand the Torah in a completely different way, not as these, stories or this history, but as really God revealing God's self, the revelation of the divine within the Torah itself. That's why one of the commentaries says that there's 70, I think it's 70 different ways to understand the Torah. I think I could be mixing that up. But each of us has the capacity to see the Torah and understand the Torah and understand the divine's revelation through the Torah in our own way, the more that we're able to refine ourselves spiritually. The more we transcend our self-centeredness and strive to be giving, the more we experience the divine light in the Torah and mitzvot. The more that we are able to, he says transcend, but the word is mevatel, to nullify et hayeshut shelo, the selfness of one, the separate self-identity of an individual, and is more able to walk the path of hashba'ah, of giving. Az ha'or Eloki me'ir lo derech ha'Torah u'mitzvot. Then the light of God shines for him through the way of the Torah and the mitzvot. So again, the more we're able to, this is another way of saying refine, right? Refine is to mevatel et hayeshut, to nullify our separate self-identity consciousness, and to walk in the path of giving, right? When we nullify our sense of being trapped within an identity that is made up of years of memories that we conglomerate into a self, that we call by our names. And we walk through the world as that self, as that identity, which keeps us separate from life. It keeps us separate from nature. It keeps us separate from each other. Because it's like an armor that shields us from the world around us. It differentiates us from the world around us. Now again, this is very important not to be confused, to think that we should nullify our ego completely so that we are this homogeneous blob of oneness. It's hard to put into words. But we're not trying to walk around as oneness zombies, so to speak. We're here to integrate the identity and the ego into its pure form of uniqueness. Each of us is a unique being. We're a unique emanation of the oneness. This is the spiritual paradox that we'll talk about again and again. We're each here to be a unique manifestation of the oneness. So when we talk about nullifying the self, we're really talking about putting it into its rightful place. We're talking about recognizing the way in which we live as an identity that keeps us separate from the world and from God and from nature. To recognize how the cultural way to live as an identity is a barrier to unity consciousness. It's a barrier to our healing. This is going to bring me into a bit of a deeper expose that I've been thinking about. So I'll try to be essential. The work I do is parts work, and it's through IFS, internal family systems. And the internal family systems model discusses parts, and parts are the building blocks of the identity, and they are our strategies to protect ourselves in a hurtful world. These parts they make up our identities, this identity that I've been talking about, the cultural identity. And they block self-energy. Self-energy is our pure form of, we could say, the unique manifestation of oneness. Healing is recognizing how each of our parts came online, how they came into reality, going back to the source and seeing how they blocked self-energy, how they came as a result of a wounding to the soul or the self. You could also say soul and self are synonymous. So as we recognize how our patterns came online, how our parts came online, we can do the healing work to heal that exile, to heal where the soul was exiled in our past through these woundings. That helps to integrate then the identity with the soul, the pure manifestation of soul, with the identity that has been also traveling through time. And the identity is both personal and ancestral. So it carries a lot, which is why it's sacred. Each of our identities has gone through a lineage, parent to child, parent to child, parent to child, through generations, all the way back till who knows when, right? The beginning, first human beings. All of the trauma is carried. And there's a I call it a trauma inheritance that is passed down through each generation. And we're here to heal that all the way back to the first human beings. That's why we're not here to just transcend it. To transcend it is to disrespect the gift, is to dishonor the journey of each of those human beings that got us here to this moment. We're here to honor them and do the healing work so that we can integrate our lineage and bring tikkun all the way down through the generations. So the more we transcend this separate sense of self and strive to be a giver, to be a servant of the divine, to be serving the true reality that's unfolding right now, to really devote ourselves to this work, to this healing, to this awakening, to this service, the more we experience God's light, through the way of the Torah and the mitzvot. The Torah and the mitzvot are the way in which we're able to awaken to this light this divine light. Yeah, the way of the Torah and the mitzvot. Illuminate the divine light. Having attained the spiritual level of being able to receive in order to give, one says, quote, I want to continue to higher levels of emunah. For me, belief in God is more important than experiencing God. This is, end quote. This is an extremely high spiritual level. So he's talking about once a person has attained the spiritual level, the highest level of being able to receive in order to give. Ratzon lekabel al menat lahashpia. Receiving in order to give, which means, as we've talked about, receiving the divine light and all of the pleasure and the bliss of unity consciousness, of feeling that everything is God, that we are in God all the time, every moment, eternally, and that we are extensions and expressions of the divine, sacred beings. When we are able to receive the bliss that comes through that revelation, that actualization, then we get to a place where we say, I want to continue to higher levels of emunah. Why? Because for me, belief in God, emunah in the divine, is more important than experiencing the divine. It's really interesting, it keeps coming back to this. That the person is not interested in experiencing God or maybe it's like becoming addicted to the experience of divinity, of unity consciousness. Rather, it's such a love for emunah, such a love for this embodied faith, that's what the seeker wants to continue developing and deepening. It's like going to the king's feast and getting all of this love, food and drink and just all the pleasures and bliss, and saying, no, this is not what I'm here for. This is not what is most interesting and most important to me. It's not to receive, even if it's receiving in order to give, because the King wants me to receive all of this pleasure and bliss. But to say, no, that's not my end game. My goal in this world is to deepen my levels of emunah so they can be in higher and higher service. And I think the truth is that it really goes hand in hand. That receiving in order to give and receiving the bliss of unity consciousness and clarity just deepens a person on the path of emunah. I think maybe the Rav is pointing to the potential of a pitfall of just getting sort of lost in the bliss and thinking like I've arrived. And the Rav is saying, well, that's not really what the seeker wants at that point. That the seeker just wants to deepen and develop their levels of emunah, higher and higher levels of emunah, so that we can continue to be in divine service and help bring about revelation of the divine for all of humanity and all life forms. A most exalted state is when a person, for love of God, prefers the hard effort of divine service over the pleasure of experiencing God. So, saying the same exact thing. It's from the same page in this book, B'ma'agalot Hashanah. So this is this exalted state that comes from such a love of God and a love of emunah, because the person prefers the hard work of divine service over the pleasure of experiencing God. Yeah, I really do think that's it, that the person doesn't just stop at the bliss level of receiving in order to give and say that this is that I've arrived. And I think it's a natural, actually, expression of once you receive that, you just want to give back. You just want to serve the divine. You want to serve in any way you can and continue to do the work of divine service rather than sort of sitting on the golden couch, blissing out in unity consciousness. Final passage for tonight. The Rebbe says that believing in God is always higher than experiencing God. This is because in the state of believing, we are in constant... Excuse me. This is because in the state of believing, of emunah, we are in constant need of God. When experiencing God, we have already received and do not feel the need for God. So interesting. So, So it's like when we're in a state of emunah, we're in constant need of the divine. We're always praying to God for more and more support, more and more help. We feel that we're in need of God's guidance and love to help us continue on the path. But when we have Gilui, when we have the revelation of the divine, and we're literally swimming in God, experiencing God's oneness, then we don't need God because we are God. We're in that state of unity consciousness. So the Rav is actually saying in this passage that the state of emunah is more precious than the state of revelation, of unity consciousness. I'd love to hear directly from the Rav on this. Believing in God is always higher. Emunah and Hashem is always higher. Yoter gavoa v'chashuva. Higher, always higher and more important than Gilui, than revelation. It's saying like that state of yearning is higher and more important than the state of union. It's hard to comprehend. So I feel like the state of union is what we're striving for. But here it would be saying that the state of emunah is really what we're striving for. Because in the state of emunah, we're in constant need of the divine. We're striving and praying for help and support, sustenance. We're still feeling like separate, that there's this me that's praying to the divine. But in revelation, there's nullification and there's just unity consciousness, just blissing out in oneness. And in that state, you no longer are feeling separate, so there's no longer this yearning and this need. So I think that the Rav is really like exalting the state of yearning. Anyways, let me know your thoughts if you have any, and have a wonderful night.